Welcome to Season 5 of the Color Success Podcast, where we talk with guests from AAPI and ethnic minority communities and have real discussions about mental health and what success looks like. I'm your host, Dr. Stephanie J. Wong. Before we get into it, remember to subscribe to our mailing list for free at colorsuccesspodcast.com so you don't miss any updates. There, you will find our socials, YouTube channel, and all episodes on streaming platforms for great additional content. I know I say every time that I have a special guest, but I really have a special guest today because she is one of my daughter's idols. And I'm just so excited to make her dream come true. She really didn't believe me when I said, oh, she's one of my friends. Let me go connect with her. So here we are, Jeanelle Castro, and she will do her own introduction because she's the pro. Jeanelle, thank you so much for coming on the show.
Well, thanks for having me. And I'm like so honored to have your daughter be the one to kind of like kick this off.
Yeah.
I would love to actually meet her when she is home or maybe through video or something. But yeah, I'm really grateful for you to have me on here. I've seen some of your previous podcasts and I'm just like, wow, I can't believe that I get to be on here and I'm able to talk about my own story as well. And thank you for creating this platform for us to share it on.
Thank you so much. And we love watching your shorts and all your reels and videos. You have just exploded since the pandemic. And I'm just so proud of everything that you're doing.
Thank you. I'm like turning red. I'm like, oh my God, I forget people actually watch the videos, I guess. Like, even though I see the numbers, like I'm just like in my house all the time. So I forget there's like an outside world. But anyway, so my name is Jeanelle, and I have created the Jeanelleats channel, primarily on YouTube, but I'm also on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, Snapchat. And I primarily show a lot of food and travel content from all around the world, but my foundation is definitely in Filipino food. That's where I was born. I was there until I was 8 and then came here in the US. My family is still very proud to be Filipino. They actually wanted me to speak Tagalog for as long as I possibly could.
Yeah.
And, you know, the Filipino culture is very strong in my family and my life, despite me being here in the US for most of my life. So my whole mission with Jeanelleats is to show how dynamic Filipino Americans can be through the food, because the Filipino food is still a huge part of my life, but I also show my other interests and other foods around the world because Filipino food actually has so many influences from many different regions. So anyway, that's my spiel. That's why my channel is also like not just Filipino food, but there's all these other types of content that you'll find on there.
I love a good halo. So we're on the same page there. And ube is something that you often use, and that is just a staple, right, in the culture. So tell me, though, how you became a content creator. What was the journey?
Okay, so I still remember the day too, and it's funny. I was working at my corporate job, and I was a product marketing manager, and we were doing like apps. So I used to work in a mobile game app company, so very techy. It's like the ping pong balls. You get like food every day, and it was awesome, honestly. But I think there was just a day when I started watching YouTube videos. I never watched YouTube videos. And I would see my other coworkers watching YouTube videos while they're on the job. I'm like, you guys are supposed to be working, but I was like, let me see what all the fuss is about. I didn't actually consume social media. Like I was rarely on YouTube unless maybe I needed to know about something. I didn't consume Instagram. TikTok wasn't even a thing back then.
Right.
So then I went on YouTube and then I was like, I don't get what all the fuss is about. There's nothing here for me. I'm not really interested in watching anything. And then I ran into, it was Emmy made her videos and she was like showing snacks around the world. And I was like, wait, I could do this with Filipino food. Like I want to share Filipino food with people. I was like, I'm going to try it. And so like, I watched that video when I was at work and then I was like, went home and I was like, I should probably try to do this. It was way harder than I thought it was going to be. I was like, she made that look really easy. But then I did it anyway. I made my video and I was like, wait, I want to do more. And I'd always loved making videos and like taking photos and stuff like that when I was younger, like just for funsies.
Sure.
And then like eventually I think as as great as my job was, as great as the people were, as great as the benefits were, my boyfriend Doug and I would travel. And then I think just being out of the office and like seeing the world, I was like, wait, like I can't keep doing this. Like I love being able to go out whenever I feel like it. I don't want to have to wait, even though it was unlimited PTO, honestly, like there really wasn't much to complain about. But I was just like, I still have like, my morals are telling me like, don't just like leave the office all the time, like you have to put in your time. You have to maybe only be out of the office 2 weeks out of the year. Um, so from there, I started thinking long term and I looked at the people around me and I was like, yeah, I don't think I can be here as long as some of these other people were here for. And I just don't want to live the life that they live. I think I just find it really uninteresting. So then I decided to try the YouTube thing. I was like, this seems like a long shot because a lot of people are saying, like, yeah, you can start a YouTube channel and like you can grow and stuff. But making that first video, I was like, this is like not easy. Like it took a long, long time for me to make that first video. And it took a long time to make the second video, the 10th video. And so I was like not getting any views either. But I decided to like just try it anyway because I'm like that person that's like, look, like, I just leap and then I'm like, if I get kind of messed up in the process, that's fine. Like I'll figure it out later. And so like I decided to eventually quit my job because I think I was just also getting a lot of like anxiety and stuff from having to do presentations and like certain stresses of the job. So eventually I was like, I can't, like, I don't think I could do this. I don't think I can be here. So I left and then I transitioned into the entrepreneurial world, which is its own set of like anxieties and difficulty, and I was
the
just like,
roller coasters and all of that. And I'm so glad you're mentioning this because I think a lot of people are like, oh, I'm going to start a YouTube channel. It's going to be, again, like where you're at, where Mr. Beast is at. And it's like, kids, this is really tough as a content creator. And I think it takes a great mentality, a strong mentality to say, hey, I'm going to stumble on the way, but I'm going to be consistent. I'm going to keep putting myself out there, which is another layer in itself, right? That's another barrier to putting up your first YouTube video is like, I have to show my face and I have to like try to be engaging, right? So, I mean, how do you balance your mental health with still creating content and living your life?
Oh, that is so hard, honestly. Like that is one of the most difficult things I go through on a daily basis. So, but it's not impossible. And I'm only saying that because I can be a workaholic. Like I will work just till, from sun up to sundown. But I would say it's a learning process. Like I have to actively teach myself when it's too much, like when the pressure is starting to get to me, when the burnout is starting to hit me. And like I just have to like, I have to kind of like not force myself. What is the word? I have to be really mindful. I have to think every day, like, do I feel good right now doing this? Like, I know I know I have to work and I know I have to make content, but at the same time, I need to make time to do other things. There was a period when I made 3 shorts every day for a year. And that was like really, really challenging. And I felt like I had lost any sense of like, doing anything outside of making videos. And from there, so I went from one extreme, right? One extreme, I literally had no life outside of making content.
Mm-hmm.
And if I was going to have a life outside of making content, I had to make videos to fill those days. So there would be, if I wanted to take a weekend, let's say 4 days, right? 4 times 3 videos, I had to make 12 videos to cover that. So it was just like a whole thing. So I went from that extreme and I had to learn what it was like to totally take away all of my interests and all of my hobbies. And then I went through a small period where I was like, no, I'm not going to make 3 videos. I'm going to be super chill. I'm going to make maybe the most low effort videos. And I've had a taste of what that was like. And now I feel like I'm now in the middle. So I was able to take a taste of both worlds. And now I'm able to like, because I had the two experiences, I'm able to put myself in the middle where I'm like, okay, this is what I can do so I can get my work done. But this is also what I need to do so that I can feel more refreshed or, feel inspired to like continue working again, because it's actually, and the other thing is I have to like tell myself that taking the breaks and doing things that I like is actually very necessary for me to continue doing this. For me at least, like for other people, maybe you're able to work through it forever, but I can't. Like if I want to continue being a content creator, it is actually part of my responsibility to take care of myself, to decompress, to go listen to music, to go have fun, to go out. Like it's part of it. And I feel like if I don't do it, I'm just going to drop this whole thing altogether. And that would be the end of it, So.
And that's common among most content creators that have been on the show, like in terms of setting boundaries for yourself and with others. I imagine, and I go through that too. It's like, oh, I'm traveling in this cool country. Let me take this Instagrammable picture, right? And it's like, when does it become too much where like you're going to specific places just for that content, or you're just really looking at it more for your business side or your content side? So and I think people go through that all the time. Like, should I quit this? Like, should I just like live my life? And I think, like you said, there is a balance that needs to be struck with most content creators. And really for you and Jessica Wu, like really enjoying the benefits that come with it, right? Because I was like, oh girl, if you're going to meet BTS, we're not going to be friends no more if you don't bring me.
Yeah, I was like, oh no. Wait, did she meet BTS and not bring you?
No. She got to go to the Grammys, but it was like content creators. But I always say that to people. I'm like, that's my ultimate dream. I will retire from content creation once I do that. But far out dream. But anyways, I have my pillow behind me. So
by the way, you are who I think of when BTS comes out. Like, I know they're like a global phenomenon, but like you are the person that I think of.
Thank you. I'm just like, that is my goal in life. No. I was like, I've done a lot of things that I've wanted to do. And that's one of those things where it's like, oh man, 2025. I was like crying when they went on hiatus, and my husband and my kids and their friends were like, Andy Steph looks so emo. So yeah, I'm really embedded and invested. And I just met a psychologist friend who we're going to the Suga concert together in May. So I'm like super excited about it.
Oh my God, don't pass out. Don't pass out.
I know. I hope we're super close. You've amassed a huge following. And I imagine that their definition has kind of changed over time. What do you consider as being successful?
Sure. Yeah, it's definitely changed, because back then it was like, once I hit 100,000, and like, once I hit 500,000, once I hit 1 million, like it was like that. And the same has been said with my other friends. Like my friends have said the same thing, where we think it's the sub count. Right. But now at this point, like I like to always look at the long term. So I'm like, okay, like, am I going to keep saying this in like 5 years, in like 10 years time? Like that gets old real quick. And so now at this point, success is no longer measured by numbers alone for me. It's definitely, I mean, okay, the revenue is a huge part of it, because the whole reason why I'm doing this is because I want to have the freedom to do what I love. But to have the freedom to do what you love, you also have to have financial stability. So I am not discounting that at all. To me, being financially stable is a huge measure of success for me, because for me, I've just always wanted to build a life of comfort, and for myself and for my family. Mm-hmm. And I don't want us to like ever have to suffer or be afraid that there's not enough to come around. So for me, being able to generate revenue through my channels is a big marker of success for me. That's still part that one I have trouble with, because people try to say to me, like, yes, your net worth is not equal to your worth. And I'm like, yes, I have to remind myself of that. And that is still something I'm actively working through. But for me, like, I'm like, okay, I do know that is still important. I have to remember that that's not like, if it fluctuates, because AdSense and all these different like brand deals and stuff, they will fluctuate. And I have to like emotionally regulate myself when that stuff happens, because
I mean, you
think
still got to survive,
exactly.
And I think that's the thing is people will say, well, it's not about the numbers and things like that, which, it does not equate to your worth as a person. And the
Mhm.
same thing that you just said is like, we still have to live. There's certain things that we want for ourselves and for myself, our children and things like that. And I imagine that for even for us when we're talking partnerships with sponsors and all that, it's still another mini job on top of like your content creation. So, I mean, I totally understand that.
Yes. So, I mean, to me, okay, that is still like a big part of it. But I've also considered that to me, success is also just being in a great, happy mental state. Like, above all else, see, I think people seeing the outside of like, oh, yeah, she has like, X amount of subscribers, and like people say hi to her in person, and, she gets to go to all these events. Like, in the end, like, after I've gone through some like really sad times of just like, man, like I'm just like in a dark place.
Mm.
Um, and it was really difficult to come out of those times. But when I did come out of it, that's when I realized like, this is, to me, this is success. Like, if I'm able to like wake up and be happy and like just like be grateful for what I've got, for, that to me at the end is success. Because then I remember that I've got my family, I've got friends, I've got this amazing career, because I feel like it's so easy to get lost in all of it and just be so hyper focused on always creating content and the numbers and all this stuff. So above all else, like even above the revenue, I'm like, yeah, I success is me just being happy and content and be chill.
Well, and not get caught up in the glitz and the glam of what other people perceive is essentially what you're saying. And, knowing that you inspire so many young people. And like I said, you're one of my daughters. She called you the bread person. Okay.
Yeah.
And it was so funny because I'm like, yeah, this is my friend. And she's like, that's the bread person. She's my favorite bread person, right? She watched your 30-day bread challenge. And she's like, Mom, please ask her what is her favorite bread out of those 30 days? What is her favorite spam dish that she made? So these questions are directly from the kids that are inspired by you. So what do you think? What was your favorite dishes in those challenges and the wheel? She told me I saw the wheel, but she's like,
The wheel.
she spun the wheel and she did the spam stuff.
Okay. The bread. Okay, so for the bread challenge, it was definitely the conchas I remember. So conchas, of course, like I've made the ensaymada, and I've made, like I love ensaymada. For me, I think I've just gotten so used to it, and I'm like, yeah, ensaymada is delicious. I've made it multiple times, but the thing that I made for the very first time that I was like really proud of was the conchas, and I love conchas. They're breads. They are I would say Mexican breads, but they do exist in other like Latin American countries as well. So like the conchas, they're like a sweet bread with like kind of like a crumbly sugar topping on top, and it's in the form of a seashell, which is what I believe that's what concha is. Anyway, I love conchas. I've never made it before, and that was the first time I made it, and I was like, wow, this turned out really good, and I can't believe that I could actually make this at home and not have to just buy this. So that was really fun. For spam, it sounds really boring, but I love spam musubis
Oh,
because,
that's our favorite.
yeah, you could do so much with it too. I think that's why, like, when I make spam musubis, like, yeah, maybe you've seen some on the channel, but I can make some like real elaborate like meals with one. Like there'll be like egg, furikake, spam, and then whatever else I decide to put in there, like salted plum. Like I'll do all sorts of stuff with the spam musubi that maybe I should probably share like on video. But it's like,
You're like, I'm just gonna enjoy this behind the camera for
yeah,
myself.
yeah, which I do that a lot. And then I forgot, was that everything?
Yeah. And
Yeah, okay.
when we go to Hawaii, they have this one musubi shop that we just love, and they have like spicy fried chicken with mayonnaise, fried chicken ones. Like
Yeah,
it's just there. You're right. There's so many things. It's kind of like in grad school, I used to have make your own sushi night because we had a lot of vegans in our class.
yeah.
The majority were, and so they can bring whatever they want and just wrap it in seaweed. I think you can have
Yes.
parties that way and have people bring ingredients. So it's she's gonna love the answer. Um, just this idea of, you fully embraced being a content creator. And we're encouraging you to obviously keep going in, rooting for you. But if you had to choose a different career, if you weren't a content creator, what do you think that would be?
Um, well, okay. There's two answers. The one that I'm trying to get into now is voice acting. That
Uh-huh.
is like my next step. But like I started going to the world, and I guess people do commercials and stuff with it, but I could just want to be in video games. So
Yeah.
I would love to do voice acting for video games or cartoons. Like I do, and this is why I'm so honored that like your daughters watch me, because I love doing things for children. And if I could do like cartoons and just like bring that delight and happiness for children, I would totally do that. And then like if I had a safety net, if I had to be like, never mind, this stuff isn't working, I would just be in marketing again. I do love marketing, and I love helping other people with their marketing. It's what I did before, and it's what I did in between my corporate job and being a full-time content creator. And I still do it now just for funsies. I tell people what they can do to help with their social media or their marketing, like if they're selling stuff. So that's like my corporate background I can fall into, I
I
guess.
was like, we'll talk after this. Uh, um, but the other thing too is there's so much influence, positive influence, like I said, that you have on children and your audience. What do you feel is one thing, or maybe you have multiple, that you could do to make a positive impact going forward?
I and this is something that I want to talk more about it. And I think I gotta get that confidence, because I get the comment section can shake me. Like when I shake, I feel like I'm shaking things up if I decide to like be very on point about something. Like if I want to take a stand for something, I know a lot of people can get really angry about it. But for me, now that I'm like thinking more about it, I was like, no, this stuff should not even be like controversial, right? For me, I'm really passionate about women really understanding how much power they have. And I want them to know it and to unleash it and to learn like all the ways that our society has kind of taught us to just be quiet or just like fall in line. And I think this is part of the reason why I have a hard time talking about it too, right? Like I'm like, so you have daughters, and I think whenever I meet a young girl, I want her to know, like, I know you're starting to learn things right now that our society wants from you. Don't do it. Like I'm like, just do what you
Yeah.
feel in your gut, right? Whenever people want to say something to you, like whenever they say, I'm not going to say profanity here, but whenever someone calls you like the B word, or whenever someone, calls you bossy or whatever, like you're not bossy. Like it's just that they were taught to believe that women, little girls, had to be prim and proper in a certain way. And that really holds you back from a lot of the things that you want to do. So it, anyway, I'll
Well,
talk about this a lot outside of my content, like with the people that I know. So that is something that I want more little girls and women right now to learn, and to just be like, all this stuff is a lie. Like you can what you want,
yeah.
like no, you're not bossy. No, you're not, the B word. Like it's perfectly fine what you're doing.
Yeah. And
Anyway, so yeah.
no, I'm so glad. And this is an exclusive, guys. Janelle
Uh-huh.
Eats, you heard it from her. And the thing is too, is that I think my daughters are kind of tired of hearing it from me, but I keep telling them, one, only apologize when you actually mean it and you feel like you've wronged somebody.
Hmm.
Don't apologize for like speaking up or saying your opinion. Of course, in a very um, polite, assertive way. And
Hmm.
I think both those things can exist. You don't have to be
Yes.
polite and timid, but you have to have decorum and you have to
Yes.
be kind. The and part is don't back down because again, because you're a girl or because you're a woman or an individual from a marginalized community. And I think that it is so important and with people like yourself and content creators, and I know Jessica has girls as well, to let them know that just by existing, just by doing what you love, you're showing young girls that they can do that too. And I think representation is, I know like it's a buzzword, oh, representation matters.
Mhm.
The and part, and I got that existence piece from BTS. So there you go. When they're fighting xenophobia, right? And it's true. It's like there's, even though you reach a level of visibility or what people say as success, there are still haters out there. I think you said the comments, and it's like, but who's saying that and what have they learned? And so a lot of my clients I work with unlearning some of the messages that have happened. Fortunately, with kids, we have an opportunity to lay a foundation, but with a lot of adults, there's an unlearning piece and looking at, systemic racism, sexism, all the isms. It is a very big challenge, but something that, I think that's why we align so well is like women have voices and we're going to use them. We're not bossy, we're bosses. So,
Yes.
there we go.
Yes. Yes. And honestly, I love that you brought up that you can have both because you can be assertive, but you don't have to be rude about it either if that's not for you. I mean, some people like have no problem with it, but I've always wanted to be like very diplomatic and I always want the other person to be heard, even if their values are totally out of reach. I'm like, no, I don't believe in what you believe in. But I'm not ever going to invalidate that, even if for me, I'm like, that's evil, or like,
Yeah.
what are you thinking? Like, why are you being racist? Or why are you being, all this stuff in my head? I never want to invalidate that too, because I feel like that's where it all started, is that person was invalidated. And that's why they are so angry now. And that's why they're taking it out on other people. But that also does not mean that you can let them continue that behavior. And so it is very important to like, you can speak up, but you don't also have to like be a jerk about it, just because they're being a jerk about it. So I think, your daughters might get tired of hearing it, but they're going to grow up with the values that you instill in them, and they're not going to really realize it until maybe they're grown up and they're like, actually, I am a very strong, assertive boss lady. And thankfully, my mom has told me all this stuff because, there are other kids out there that don't get that kind of advice.
Yeah.
So,
And I really try to, and they've never said I'm tired of it, but I think I tell them sometimes I'm doing this and you may not understand right now, but you'll understand later. And just being curious about how other people think is what you're talking about, being flexible. And you can say your piece and move on and not escalate it. And then there's other people that really want to engage in dialogue. And just by having that dialogue with someone who seemingly is different from you is exposure therapy in a way. Like, oh, I think Asian women are like this, but you actually speak up. And I'm like,
yeah,
yes, and there's different ways where you can have influence. You don't, and I think that's the point. You don't have to have a huge social media following to be able to have these conversations and, have a positive influence on, the next generation. So
I
we
agree.
got deep. We got deep.
I know. I was like, like, oh man, I could talk about this. Oh, I know. Doug knows. I've just talked his ear off, and
Yeah.
he's learned a lot. But obviously, he is a man, and he just hasn't been exposed to somebody like me and the things that I've learned. And so it's just great to also see, like, maybe in the beginning he was never aware of this stuff, and
Yeah.
now he's aware. So that's when I learned, like, no, there's like, people aren't bad for not knowing this. Maybe they're just not aware.
Hmm.
But there are those people that are like not willing to listen. And I don't waste my time with those people. I'm using my time on people who are, who would like to make that time to understand and put themselves in other people's shoes. And I do feel like the world is becoming a better place every day because of more people speaking up about this and more people being open to it. I can see it. I know there's a lot of like bad that's also happening, but I can see the transformation of people around me that maybe before were not open to this kind of discussion. So,
Absolutely.
yeah.
And I mean, this is related because we both love to travel, and I've been able to see kind of different conceptualizations, not to overgeneralize in societies, but different conceptualizations of the rights women have, the opportunities that they have. I know my friend in Korea was really telling me that usually once women become pregnant and they have babies, it's pretty hard to transition back into a career. And
Yeah.
so it makes me grateful too that I've been able to pursue what I would like to do and am doing, even after having children, because that is a whole another piece of society that it's very difficult. So, but what are some of your favorite places that you've been to, and maybe some that are on your bucket list?
Yeah, sure. My gosh. I as much as I love going back to the homeland, like the Philippines and being there, I think it's just like it's so far. It's so far. And for me, there's just a lot more planning that I have to do. Like there's just I and I don't know if it's maybe because just like travel plans or maybe just like how the airports are and stuff, but like I just enjoy going to also the I love going to like Ireland, and my sister and I are going back to Ireland because like the people are so nice and like
Mm.
the landscape is so lush, but also I think people leave me alone. And I think that's why I like it. Like I was like, what is the pattern of the places that I really love going to? Usually a lot of like landscapes and scenery. So if I was gonna go to back to the Philippines, it would be usually like landscapes and like lush tropical jungles and maybe the beaches, but usually a little bit more secluded. Like I like to have like peace and quiet, and I'm not like a huge city person. So when my sister and I we're going back to Ireland, I love it there because it's so yeah, it's so lush. People are kind, but like people will also like not be all up in my face. Like I feel like whenever I go to a city, there's always like a ton of people. You never know who you're gonna be running into. And I think I'm just like I'm so balled up at home that I'm like, I just if I'm gonna go
You just
somewhere,
want privacy.
privacy, yeah. But most importantly, like I think there are so many kind people wherever you go. I think it's just like I don't mind like going to a more hectic place. I think it's important for somebody like me too, so that I don't, when like when people, I feel like when you get older, you're more resistant to change. And I'm starting to feel that for myself. So I'm like, okay, if there's something, and there's a lot of stereotypes, by the way, that go on in my head too. Like, I'm not going to deny that. Um, I have to like be open to going to these places that maybe there's a stereotype of it being unsafe or
Mhm.
like, oh, you're gonna get sick or you're gonna get kidnapped. That's like a big part of it. I'm like, okay, like that stuff is not true. That's another thing. So for me, I'm like, I'm pretty open to going to a lot of different places. Um, the top one, I mean, I would love to go do like a Southeast Asia, like hopping around, like Thailand, Vietnam, Indonesia, obviously the Philippines, Cambodia. Like I would love to see the temples in Cambodia. My friend is Cambodian, she has family there. But I also want to go through like I've never been to Eastern Europe and like more places and Africa. Like I want to go check out Africa because I think people talk a lot about it and like there's a certain stereotype. I heard like people have asked people if they ride giraffes to work, and then like
That's a
you're
new
like
one I haven't heard. Wow.
yeah, I saw that going around. Like, I guess some like people ask certain people, like, no, like there's building, like it's like it's cities, like everything is developed, but like somehow people still have this perception that like people ride giraffes to work. And I was just like, man, this is just like obviously stereotypical and racist. And like I think people need to travel more to also understand there's going to be a city wherever you go. And those are very like old-timey views of the world.
Hmm.
So like for myself though, those kind of also exist in my head, and going to those places like just totally squashes it. And it just reminds you that we're all kind of very similar,
Yeah.
American, Filipino, like we're all very similar, and you just kind of have to go there and learn. So yeah, anyway.
Well, we're all human, right? And I think
Yeah.
at the end of the day, people want to thrive and be fed and have
Yeah.
shelter, um and Manila is very different, preaching to the choir, very different than other places as well. Like we went to Manila, Cebu, and it's just gorgeous. And Manila
Mhm.
Airport is a very busy place, and it's smaller obviously than like SFO or
Yeah.
LAX and whatnot. So there are different things that you would have to plan. Um,
Mhm.
so you're traveling, you're eating. You just recently went to Japan. We're going in the summer. Yeah, we're super excited. So
Wait, sorry. How could I not have said Japan? Like, I loved Japan. I
yeah,
was like thinking of just like my future trips. Japan was amazing. So anyway, continue. I'm excited for
yeah.
your trip.
We went before when they were little, and I'm
Mhm.
wearing Hello Kitty today, but just because there's apples on, I'm like, Janelle's food. I need to have something. I like to dress up for appropriately for my guests. But yeah, Japan is amazing. This time I think we're gonna go to Osaka, which we haven't
Mhm.
been to before, and then we'll head over to Korea for a little bit. But um as you're traveling, as you're eating, and people, I see so many channels now. Now that you are at this level in your game, I would say a veteran, a pro, what advice would you give to people to stand out in a very, very crowded space?
Uh, it sounds very simple, but it's kind of hard to achieve, which is just to stick to what you are interested in and to really allow your true personality, the personality that you want to show online to stand out. Because we know that this is just like the side of me that you'll see online, but we're all very dynamic. Like I'm not always like, all the time. But this is a personality I want to show. And I have developed this. This is truly a part of me. Like this is really like a part of my personality. Like if I meet you in person, like this is me. It's just one part of me. But I had to learn to let that out comfortably on camera. And so part of that too is like being able to trust yourself. And, we talked about just like growing up, like as a woman, especially like Asian American woman. And like, I feel like we were always taught to look to outside influences for what we need to do. And that I think a lot of that stuff gets tossed around. Like, you have to do the trends, you have to do this because like Mr. Beast is doing it, or like this creator is doing it. But like, they're already there. They've created their content and that people watch them for that. But those people stand out because that's the stuff that they wanted to do.
Hmm.
And let's say your channel, okay, think about it this way. Let's say you didn't listen to yourself. You didn't do the things that you were interested in, and you decide to create this other personality that you're like, oh, I hate this, but I'm doing it because it works. Okay, now you have to keep that up
Yeah.
forever. And like, are you able to do that? Do you enjoy that? Like, then this is just going to be like any other terrible job that you've hated. Like it's
Good
still a
point.
career, right? So like you have to just trust that what your interests are. This is what I was telling myself when I was still like starting out. It's like my interest, I am not that strange. I am not like a hermit in society. Like if I have an interest, there is highly likely going to be another group of people,
Right.
maybe small group for now, but it'll probably get bigger. And as you get, more and more followers, you realize like, wait, actually my interests span across clearly millions of people, right? Like so many people can relate to this stuff, but it's really hard when you're starting out and you don't see the numbers yet. Like now I'm more comfortable with it. Now I have more confidence in like listening to myself, listening to my interests, and like sharing that stuff, because in the past people would probably be like, no. Like what I told myself was like, no, I should probably just make like Italian food. Maybe I should just make American food, right? Like
Yeah.
because that's the stuff that's the stuff that people are watching, and people wouldn't watch like, my Filipino food or Asian food or all these like other, you know, things that maybe people wouldn't be down to watch. Uh, it's also not sustainable, like you're gonna hate it. Like just you're gonna hate it. I mean, try it, go for it and then
Yeah.
see what happens. You can always shift too. Don't ever think that you can't shift. But yes, the only way I would, for me, the only way you could stand out is to truly unlock that piece of yourself that is so unique. Like people will love you for it.
Well, that's
So,
the beauty of the internet, right? People are interested in different cultures and different cultures' foods. And one of my favorites is Joshua Weissman, because not only does he recreate the fast food stuff, he also just it spans so many different cultures, foods. Um,
Yes.
and it's funny when you said having an alternate personality or character. I'm like, I hope Mr. Roger likes playing Mr. Roger, because
Oh,
that
Uncle Roger.
yeah, I'm like, I hope that he likes playing that character, because that's his bread and butter, and he has to keep that up, right?
Exactly.
Um so we are nearing the end, and I would get a lot of crap from the kids and from their friends if I didn't ask Jeanelle for a shout out. So I'm wondering if you can give a shout out to Zoe, Aria, Kaylin, and Kaya. And of course, I could repeat those for you.
Zoe, Arya, Kaylin, and Kaya.
Kaya. Mm-hmm.
Kaya. Zoe, Arya, Kaylin, and Kaya. You all watch my channel? I'm so honored. Honestly, thank you so much, because I really, like, honestly, I get the butterflies when I hear, especially like 4 like young ladies like watching my stuff. Like there's something about it. Like I trust children and their intuition, and they're just like, I think it's because like you're so full of like life and imagination and creativity, that if I am able to get your interest, then that means I'm doing something right. So shout out to you. Thank you for watching. The day that you stop watching, then I know I'm doing something wrong, because I'm probably losing that like childlike creative side of me. So thank you for watching. Thank you for supporting. And you are the reason why I make the videos that I do make.
Thank you so much for being on the show today. This was such a great conversation, and just reinforces why we all love you. So thank you so much for taking the time out.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Thank you for tuning in. Remember to support us for free by subscribing to our mailing list at colorsuccesspodcast.com. There, you will find our socials, YouTube channel, and all episodes on streaming platforms for great additional content. As Rob Heaps from Partner Track said, success is contagious, so come catch it.